This was Bowen, the same Bowen who, when Shorten was the opposition leader and they thought he was a shoo-in, took a tax policy to the electorate which was punitive and destructive and said, oh, if you don't like it, don't vote for us. I'm arguing this bloke's now taking an energy policy which is punitive and destructive with the potential to destroy Albanese's prime ministership.
Well, I certainly think that this is the most audacious and risky policy we've so far seen from the Albanese government. I think Bowen is a really interesting minister. I mean, a lot of the other ministers are pretty cautious. They're still feeling their way. The interesting thing about Chris Bowen is, and he devised the policy when he was in opposition, he's come in very aggressive, very confident.
Yes.
He's tied the government into these policies. He's running hard. He's got the 43% reduction through the parliament. He's now going for the mechanism to get that bill through the parliament as well. But the fact of the matter is, once all this is in place, this is going to be, I think, an enormously difficult and troubling transition for the country, and I think a very risky transition for the Labor government.
Definitely. You've got this Ted Woodley, a former managing director of PowerNet, GasNet, Energy Australia, now saying that Turnbull's $2 billion estimate, and Turnbull's gone and leaves the mess to someone else, the $2 billion estimate of Snowy 2.0 will end up costing $20 billion or more. And his words, Snowy 2.0 never stacked up economically, technically or environmentally. It will never pay for itself. There are better alternatives. Paul, as I said, Turnbull's gone, and as Ted Woodley says, the current government didn't approve the debacle, but they'll be held accountable if it fails. What should happen to Snowy Hydro?
Well, I think there are a couple of key points here, Alan. The first point to make is that Malcolm Turnbull put this up in lights. I mean, he saw this. Yeah. He saw this as one of his most significant achievements. I think that's really interesting. He kept on talking about engineering, that you had to have an engineering mindset. And I think we all know what Malcolm was like. He saw himself as the smartest person in the room. Well, we've now had Chris Bowen and the new government tell us this project is just riddled with problems, riddled with difficulties. Yeah. Chris Bowen has said that. He said that they'll have to have a good look at it. I don't think we've yet been told the full story about exactly what's going to happen with Snowy Hydro, but this could end up being, I think, a real tale of woe for the country.
Absolutely. Just back to Bowen, I mean, is there a schizophrenia in the Albanese government? Because Bowen is openly despising fossil fuels. Madeleine King, this energy minister, and she seems to be the canary in the mine, she's condemning the Greens for blanket bans, arguing that banning coal and gas is, quote, impossible and ridiculous, and would have, she said, vast consequences for Australia's role as an energy supplier to Asia. Paul, why not use coal and gas as an energy supplier to Australia?
Well, I think the interesting thing about Madeleine King is that she's a tough-minded woman, a resources minister, coming from Western Australia. She knows the industry. She's made it absolutely clear that she's committed to gas as a transition fuel. Now, there are very significant differences, I think, within the government about gas. When it comes to coal, I think essentially the story here is a closed book as far as the Albanese government is concerned. That is, there won't be new coal mines, but the Prime Minister's made it clear he wants Australia to continue to be a strong coal exporter. Now, the interesting point to make about this, Alan, is that the Greens, coming from the left, coming from the progressive side of politics, are putting the Labor government under a lot of heat. And what the Greens are saying is no more coal, no more gas, and we want to drive Labor to the situation where it starts to make concessions on that front. Now, so far, the government hasn't made those concessions. But I think the politics of the left in terms of the competition between Labor and the Greens are going to be fascinating and really critical over the course of the next 12 to 18 months.
I mean,